Well, thanks for coming back, guys. Apparently I didn't do too bad on Wednesday or whatever. So today we are going to be talking about digital ads, paid ads, and how to run them. Specifically online is the type of ads we're talking about. So I wanted to cover digital ads specifically because of some of the key benefits that you can get from digital advertising. Most likely, and typically a lot of businesses need more of a holistic approach when it comes to marketing. You can't just rely on one tactic and it just works. But on the other hand, it's tough because you don't have infinite budget. And if you spread your budget out too thin and you only spend $100 here and $100 there, $100 over there, you're likely not going to make a big enough splash. So it's tricky to figure out that balance of being well-rounded, but then also being effective with the budget that you do have. So digital ads can be a great place to start for a handful of reasons. One, you can really hyper control the actual budget you spend. You can spend $5 a day on Instagram or Google or something like that to advertise. It also allows you to test your creative. So if you were going to place an ad in a magazine or in the paper or something like that, you could really play around with different headlines, different photos, different body copy, stuff like that in your digital ads to then apply across your marketing efforts as a whole. And know exactly what's working because of the metrics that you can get from running digital ads, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of different places that you can run digital ads. We talked about a couple. A lot of social media is all ad driven. That's how they make their money. Obviously Google has a lot of advertising. There's a lot of other online publications. Like I know you can run online ads through like the Journal and Courier or other things like that. So there's a ton of different routes that you could go. There's also like TikTok, you can run ads on that, but unless you're active on that platform, you're probably not going to be very effective. Their algorithm kind of prioritizes users that are active on the platform itself. So usually if we're talking to somebody about a key place where they can spend a little bit of money and see the maximum return on their investment, we're talking about either Google or Meta. I'm going to spend a lot of time today talking about Google just because it's kind of counts for the lion's share, and there's so many different options that you can use within Google itself. It kind of just feels like a no-brainer if you're going to do advertising, that this is one of the key places that you choose. I can't talk about Google without mentioning Bing. It's a lot less of a popular search engine, but because it's less popular, it means it's less competitive. So that is a route as well that somebody could go down to, but especially in kind of a smaller market like Lafayette. I mean, obviously what we're marketing towards are local things to local people, right? So there's just going to be less volume on Bing, and it's probably not going to be efficient, but I had to mention it. But like I said, we're going to talk about Google primarily here in a minute, but we're going to talk about some kind of general high-level principles before we get to that point, answer some questions that typically people have when it comes to digital advertising, and kind of go from there. Before I go further, do you guys have any specific questions that you want addressed in this topic? Okay, I like to check there's enough of us, it's small enough that we can actually do that. So, okay, so definitely the number one question I always get from small businesses is budget. What should I budget for this, right? And you know what you could afford to pay potentially, but what should you pay? What does it make sense to invest in something like online advertising, and what kind of return do you need to see to justify it, right? So I think first off, the thing that we need to talk about when we're talking about marketing is that all marketing should at least feel like it's an investment, right? That at least you feel like there's some kind of return on that investment. If you think you're just dumping money down the drain by doing marketing, there's a decent chance that might be true. So I just want to get that out there because, again, when we're talking about budget, it's easy to say, well, I've got this amount left over at the end of the month that I could just throw at something, but if it doesn't feel like it's an investment, even if you don't know, that's probably a bad sign. The nice thing about digital ads is you can know. You can know exactly how much it costs you. You can know what your targeted KPIs need to be to actually make the kind of revenue that you need to make. You can set benchmarks and try to target that, and then see all the different interactions through the back end of these advertising platforms to figure out, am I actually going to make money off of this, or am I just dumping it down the drain and lining Mark Zuckerberg's pockets. So like an example of like just feeling like there's an ROI for my business, for Hustlefish, we do web design. I can't tell you exactly how much revenue our website brings in and why, if people choose, how many people choose to work with us because of the way that our website looks, but I know that it's true, right? I have clients come to me and tell me like, hey, we love the way your website looked. It was so interesting and different, and that's why we wanted to talk to you. But I can't necessarily demonstrate that and give you a simple calculation. So that kind of thing is okay as long as it at least feels like you're getting a return on that investment, right? So again, digital ads, you can actually see all the KPIs, you can track all the metrics, and you can figure out exactly what you need to be seeing from a results standpoint to justify X amount of spend, and you can figure out the exact balance that you need to hit to actually show the return. So I'm gonna get into this in a second and share a calculator that we've built for digital advertising, and if you guys want access to this, I'll happily provide it. It's just a simple calculation. I don't know why more ad agencies don't give this out for free, because it's really helpful, and if our clients are going to make money running ads at the end of the day, then they're going to fire us, and we don't want to work with them in the beginning, so it's easy. Just checking my notes. So this is tracking results for digital ads is easiest when we're selling products. If you can say, if you're selling a candle and somebody sees your ad for a candle, clicks to your website, puts it in their cart and buys it, it's very easy to attribute that new revenue to that advertisement, right? It gets a little trickier if you're selling services, but there's still a way to set up benchmarks and come up with key metrics that you want to see to prove the results of what you're doing, if that makes sense. So you have to have a couple key pieces of information. Ideally, you know what your average order size is from your client, and then your average cost per order, if that makes sense. So there's a handful of variables that you need to know. We'll get into that in a second when we show the calculator. And then there's two different versions that I'm going to show. One is specifically for product-based companies, and the other one is for end product, like e-commerce specifically, not just products, but organizations that are selling their product online. And then the other one is service-based. But it really gives you all the different levers that you need to figure out what budget you need to spend to actually net positive results. And then again, the last thing I'll say is it's easy to get really distracted by the different metrics that digital advertisers let you see, like really any advertising. They'll talk about impressions, they'll talk about clicks, they'll talk about likes, and so you really need to define what your goal is up front of what you want to see. Otherwise, it's easy to look at something and think positively, but then it never actually affect your bottom line. So it's easy for a big company like Nike to get all excited about impressions and just show a commercial on the Super Bowl and just know that that's going to make them more money. But as small businesses with small budgets, we have to really think through and see results from what we invest in marketing. I think I beat that dead. Let me share that calculator tool and walk us through that really quick. I've got to change my screen settings. Okay, perfect. Let me scooch a little bit, and let me zoom in. Okay. This spreadsheet right now is for the e-commerce type of advertising. So there's over here in this B column, there is all the inputs that we have, and then in the D column, it shows some results based off of those inputs. So I'm going to talk through each one of these, and then we'll go through kind of an example. So we need to input the total product cost. So let's use an example of candles again. Let's say that it costs $5 to produce a candle. Let's say that it costs $1 to ship, and we use Fulfilled by Amazon or some other service, or we pay somebody hourly to ship candles, and we know that fulfilling costs about $1 as well. We also know that we're going to sell these online, so we're getting hit with a 2.9% merchant processing fee for users to be able to use their credit card. And I'm just double checking my math is right here. Yes, so that gives us a total cost. I've got to fill out what the average order value is before this will make sense. So again, if I'm a candle company, my average order is 2 candles. The candles are $15 a piece, so I'm going to say it's a $30 average order size. And then there's a lever in here that we can select to determine whether or not the client is paying for shipping. So at this lower value, they do have to pay for shipping. If they get to $60, they don't, whatever. So we're going to say that shipping costs them $5. It's a flat shipping rate. So our average revenue per order is $35, and our cost to produce that order is $8. That gives us a profit per order of $26.99. Our percentage of cost is 22%, and our gross profit margin is about 77%, which is amazing. I would love to have that kind of margin. I'm happy to use real numbers if you guys want to throw some out, but we'll play around with this. So to break even on ad spend, it means we have to target a return on ad spend of 1.29. Return on ad spend is a metric that will show up in your platform that basically is a simple calculation of what you spent on the actual ads over how much revenue you actually got, or vice versa. But it's a simple calculation of how much did you spend to how much did you get. So to break even, we need to see a 1.29 return on ad spend. So we filled all this out. There's some return on ad spend with margin targets. So if you want to target a 10% margin on top of your return on ad spend, you need to be hitting a 1.49. If you want to see a 30% margin, you need to be targeting a 2 ROAS. So that's just kind of a helpful breakdown when you're really in the numbers every day with e-commerce. And ROAS is a key KPI for a lot of advertisers. There's some other levers that we can pull too. So additional discounts. A lot of times we'll see ads running some kind of discount to get somebody started. So let's say a 10% off order. So let's add this in here, and it will continue to change our numbers around a little bit. And then total discount percentage. So if you, I misread this. This is the number of clients that actually get this discount. So we're going to say 75% because we've got it on our website. And then the total discount is 10% off your first order. So that changes some of the numbers. Our advertising budget, we're going to change this a lot. We're not going to spend $36,000 in a year. We're going to try spending $3,000. And our target ROAS, we want to try to make 40% margin, so we're going to leave that as 2.5. So, based off of these numbers, if we spend $3,000, let me delete this, sorry. If we're doing this on our own and managing this ourselves, we spend $3,000 on advertising. We expect to see $7,500 in return with our 2.5 return on ad spend. That means we're going to see 200 plus sales made, and we're going to lose about $500 in discounts for a net revenue of almost $4,000. The average ad cost per purchase, like how much you spend on ads per buy, is about $14 in this instance, and your monthly net profit would be about $2,220. So this is it's a little complex, but it's also a little simple in some ways. But it's really helpful to know what you should spend and if you're going to end up backwards on something. So if you reduce the ad spend quite a bit, all of a sudden, in some cases, it may not be worth it. If you're working with an outside consultant and they're charging you $1,000 a month to manage, even though the ads look good and you're seeing new revenue come in, with that additional cost of the outsourced work or whatever, you'll be losing money every month, which is obviously not what we want to see. So this is really helpful as you evaluate different opportunities to at least set a benchmark. You can use this not just for digital ads, but you could use it for other types of ads too. If you're running them in the paper or anything like that, you can kind of plug these in and see what kind of returns you should see. it's really, I think there's a lot of ad agencies that kind of have predatory behavior for small businesses. Like you'll get calls from Google asking you to just sign up, and they'll just start spending your money. Or I know I've gotten calls from all kinds of different the radio stations, the newspapers. Purdue has called me to sponsor games and stuff like that, and all of that stuff should be evaluated by, do I at least feel like it's going to provide value, or even better, this numbers-based way of determining value. Really quick, I've got another calculator example for like a service-based company that's looking to generate new leads versus actually selling product, and it's just a little bit different. But we want to see the average deal value, the ad spend that we're targeting. We can do some research to see the cost per click. We can make some assumptions about the conversion rate of those ads, which will give us the cost per lead. And then, depending on how much we're spending, we should see a certain amount of leads because of due to the conversion rate. And then there's this nifty conversion rate from there, right? If a lead just calls you, what are the odds that you'll want to work with them and send them a proposal? And then once you send them a proposal, what's the odds that they actually sign that deal? So all of this is fairly simple calculations. It just looks more complex than it is, I'd say. And you can quickly figure out what the value of an advertising opportunity is, and then have at least a benchmark of what you want to aim for to break even or ideally be profitable. Any questions about the calculator tool? Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. Let me change my view settings again. There we go. So the first question always is budget. What should you be spending? Well, you should do the math first off. Another reason why people use digital advertising is the ability to really hyper-focus your audience and your targeting for specific ads. So being able to either geo-target locations, so like a local business. I was just talking to somebody today that wants to run ads, and obviously they're just in Lafayette, so they want to only target Tippecanoe County and not beyond that, right? So that's great. I worked with another company a couple years ago that was going to a big ad conference. It was like a week long. They wanted to run some ads targeting the area where the conference was just for a week. And so we did that for a second. So, within a couple miles of the actual convention center, we ran ads and targeting all the visitors of the conference. So beyond geography, you also have demographics, age, gender, etc. But then there's some really cool features, especially in social media advertising, where you can target specific interests, like interests relating to home improvement or home decor is like just one area that I was looking at today. There's other things too. You can target household income, which is really interesting. So there's a breakdown in percentages of U.S.-based household income. You can target the top 5% earners in the country. What are some other things? I'll show some other examples here.
So when you do targeted, do you pay for that? So in other words, that's in your ad that you want it targeted. Does that cost more money?
No.
Okay.
Nope. So that's all standard out of the box. It's just a little bit more work to get it set up, and then it takes some more management too. Either you have to be really thoughtful, and you can sometimes narrow your window to the point, like this client that I was talking to today, their big concern is, will they have enough actual market?
Yeah.
So if we were to run ads in Lafayette, they are a lawn care service, and they only want to offer it to people who are willing to pay high dollar for lawn care, right? And there's not that many of us in town, so.
No, it's just like any search you do. If you get it too narrow, a lot of times you lose half of what you really wanted to reach.
Yep, and if you make it too broad, then you're wasting money.
Well, you've got to fight through the whole thing.
Yep, exactly. So, so using these tools is really important, but it also takes a little bit of finesse as well. The other thing that you can do, especially on social media, which is really interesting, is target lookalike audiences. So we were talking with a law firm in town. They want to do more elder law, which is like retirement, it's power of attorney,
wills and stuff like that,
estate planning. So one of the things that they've had success with in person is going to potentially retirement homes or nursing homes and presenting to the people there and their families about what you need to be thinking about at that point in your life, right? And they always get new clients from that. So one of the options that we talked to them about was a lookalike campaign where we create an audience that we're targeting based off of all the people who like the Westminster Village page on Facebook, right? And for the farmers market here, you can run ads on people that like the farmers market page on Facebook or Instagram. So that's another way you can get really hyper targeted about people who have interests that are related to what you're selling. So all of these targeting options are really powerful, and I do want to take a second to show what Meta looks like for all those different options. It's pretty broad. Change my window settings again. I'm gonna have to do this a couple times, so bear with me. So here's a audience that I've been creating in Indy. Like I said, I was talking to a lawn care company. I'm gonna edit this. So I can create this custom audience based off of geography first. So I've got Lafayette. They're also talking about expanding into the north side of Indy, so Zionsville, Carmel, and the surrounding areas. I can choose the demographics, age, and then I can choose gender as well, languages if that's relevant. But here's where it gets really interesting, like I was talking about, is these interests. So I'm gonna go look at all of the different options for this. So looking at demographics, there's education, there's financial, there's life events, which is really interesting. I can target people based on anniversary or birth date, a new job, or recently moved. I can target people based off of their work, whether, depending on what industry they're in or their job title. And then there's a lot of interests. So let's just look under entertainment and see what types of things are there. Movies, what kind of movies do they like to watch? I can target around that if I know and if it's helpful.
If people were wondering our mode to watch movies.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's not one we chose for this one. Food and beverage too. If people like to cook, that might be a great indicator for somebody wanting to come to the farmer's market and buy fresh local produce, right? There's tons and tons of these different options, and narrowing them down can be tricky, but really helpful too. There's also behaviors. So again, some of these we've already covered, but anniversary, there are, you can specify mobile device, you can see what they're doing around the internet essentially. So let's see what there are. You can target based off of internet browser, which isn't super helpful. You can target small business owners if that's relevant to you. Target travelers. So tons and tons of options, and then up at the top end, it generates a estimated audience size, which isn't necessarily people, like total people. So for instance, I have an Instagram account and I have a Facebook account. I'm probably counted twice in this audience size, even though I'm one person. So it's really about the total amount of accounts that would be available to see the ads, not actual people. So it won't relate directly to true population and like census data or anything like that. But it's helpful to know how many people you're really looking for. So in the instance of my, let me make sure I didn't change anything. In the example of my the lawn care company, if we strike out Carmel and Zionsville, which they're planning on expanding to but haven't yet, all of a sudden their audience size based off of our criteria shrinks dramatically. It goes
Could
down.
be only 3,000, right?
Yeah, exactly. It drops by 90%.
Yeah.
If I change some of these demographics, it gets even more extreme, right? So I've got the top 25% of household income. If I drop that to the top 10%, let's see what we get. Below 1,000 people in this area, which makes sense based off of what we know about our community. But this is really helpful for me for a couple of reasons. One, it helps me know what the total addressable market is.
Yeah.
It helps me really narrow my target window, and it helps them, the client, or us as small business owners, know, is this even going to be worth it to spend this kind of money to acquire a very small share of the market? So the point of me kind of sharing this is the ability to really, really target and narrow down to less than 1,000 people online, right, who we're trying to go after, which is really powerful. And if you think about all the other different advertising opportunities that you have, it gets harder and harder to do this granularly. Magazines, newspapers, all that stuff has like listener readership statistics, but who actually knows? I think this is a lot more accurate and a lot more precise. Any questions about or anything you guys want to explore on the audience definition thing really quick? Or?
I think that's pretty neat what you can do with that.
It's very powerful. So
even though you might only have 1,000, that might be enough for your size of business, right? It doesn't
Totally.
have to be, tens of thousands.
Yeah, that's when we go back to the calculator, right? And think through, let me get this back. So for this client, they need to get at least 37 leads
Right.
a month to make this worth it. Well, 37 leads a month at against only 1,000 possible people,
Right.
they're going to run out of room real quick.
Yeah.
But the second that we take their average deal value, like let's say they're not a lawn care company, let's say they're a custom home builder, and their average client charges $500,000 a house. All of a sudden, they just need to get one sale to make that make sense, right? So.
Well, and how many times do you need to see an ad before it resonates in the person's mind,
Yeah, it's a lot of times, especially with advertising, but in general they say that for a cold touch, for a brand new relationship that you've never met, it takes at least 13 times of some type of interaction with them. Ad, in person even, or a phone call, email, whatever, it takes about 13 touches, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So again, this definitely isn't one and done, and marketing never is, but it's about trying to be as well balanced as you can and driving people to the right place. I'm going to switch back to my presentation here.
So we've talked about doing mass mailings before.
Yeah.
So you can get in Lafayette even certain parts of a zip area, and I didn't realize this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go down to just like one block of places.
Yep.
And it's not real expensive, but then again, you're just sending it blind to you don't know who.
Right.
It's not sent it to anything specific like you're doing here.
Yeah, and you can get that niche with this audience as well. I've been using just towns because it's easier, but you can get down to the zip code. I only want to target my zip code.
Okay.
Oops, did that wrong. That's not where I live.
Yeah.
Boom, we got downtown. And you still have all those demographics. So
Yeah.
with this, I bet there's almost no one that lives in my zip code that is the top 10% of earners in the country. But yes, so it's pretty powerful again, like you're saying. And there's other tools that have similar things, but not all of them combined as
Right.
far as targeting goes.
So I've had Google call me a couple times to do ads. I never have done anything. Do you trust them? I mean, most of the time, are they doing in your best interest?
No,
That's like-
unfortunately not. All of the advertisers, and this is true literally across the board, right? They're trying to get their bottom line hit, and especially Google and Facebook, and I think the newspapers are like this now today too. Like all of their revenue is almost exclusively from ads, and so they're going to do whatever they can to get new ad revenue, and ideally that means that they're helping you generate new revenue too, but
It doesn't have to be.
it doesn't have to be. And like I said, I think a lot of people are a little predatory on small businesses because they know you guys need to keep growing and expanding, but it's probably not going to be super effective, especially just right out of the box. You got to understand a little bit more about what they're doing and what they're charging you for, and you got to look out for your own best interests too. Which I think is coming back to the whole calculator thing. I think that's really key.
So I looked up our business and it said, one of the things it's got on Google, it says claim your credit.
Yep.
And it says more customers could be reached with your $500 ad credit. So they're giving you $500. Of course, you might have to spend 500 too to get 500.
Yeah. So it's great that they do stuff like that. And again, just like with our company, you know, we are also in the business of trying to make ourselves money.
Sure.
But for everybody, I mean, it's best for them. It's best for you if everybody is making money. So hopefully that's what they're going after. But again, not always. Sometimes those guys just need to make a quota. There's a handful of recommendations that I've got in this presentation that I think will help you. If you want to take advantage of that $500 credit, you can start and run some things and just see how they turn out, and then shut it off at the end if it doesn't. So let me get back to that though. So another really helpful thing about digital ads is that you can test and retest and test again and retest again. So I think there's a misnomer in digital advertising and any kind of advertising that you just set it and forget it. And that's just simply not the case, especially in the digital world. You can and should be testing and relaunching ads. Sometimes your creative will get stale. The algorithms will stop throwing your ads out there because of something called ad fatigue, and you just need to refresh, add a new photo, because you know, if you're targeting the same 1,000 people, eventually they've seen your ads 1,000 times and they're tired of it. So switching it up will get you better results. You can do A/B testing to try and see you know, if this image performs better than that image, or if this product performs better than that product, etc. The other thing too is to check your keywords. We're going to get into keywords a little bit more. Time is flying. So we'll get into keywords a little bit more, but check and remove irrelevant keywords, especially if you take advantage of that $500 credit for Google. Sometimes they do what's called broad match keywords, and they'll just say, oh, you know, you're a farm in Indiana, so let's also target irrigation Indiana. And it's like, that has nothing to do with what we do, right? So those broad match keywords are a great way that Google just kind of wastes your money and doesn't think about your business and the intent behind those keywords. Again, with this testing and being able to retest, iterations are so critical. It's great to try something, see if it worked or didn't work, and then try again. And with digital ads, you can just do as many iterations as you can stomach, which I think is really powerful in another reason that we recommend doing this versus with a print ad. A company might ask you to commit to running that same ad for months before ever changing it, and you just don't really know what effect it had until it's too late. So the nice thing about digital ads is the ability to quickly test, retest, and then do something different and pivot. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is, this is another key thing that I would recommend for you, is just dumping any ad traffic to your homepage. You have a very short window to catch somebody's attention and then to do something with it. And if you just take them to the homepage of your website or something like that, they're not going to actually do anything. You're not going to capitalize on conversion, right? So we need to make sure that we don't add any friction to this process. If we're advertising for a specific ad or a specific product, we need to send them to the page where they can just buy that product, right? Or if we're advertising a service, we need to send them to a landing page that describes that service, something like that. If we're driving really high intent traffic, like they want to buy something, and you send them somewhere where they can't buy the thing that they thought they were going to buy, you're just going to bounce back and you're going to waste money on a click that never did anything because you didn't send them to the right place. So yeah, I see this all the time where people just generally send them to their homepage or something like that, and that's, especially when we're talking about product marketing, don't do that. If you're gonna sell a CSA basket or something, send them to a landing page where they can select the basket and check out. Okay, we're gonna talk a little bit more about Google Ads. We've already talked about a lot of different ways of placing digital ads, but Google has a lot of market share, and there's a lot of powerful features and stuff, so I want to spend a little bit of our time specifically on Google. So there's a lot of different types of Google Ads as well, and I want to talk about a couple of those really quick. So search ads is one specific type of Google Ads that's maybe the most familiar or popular. Let me see if I can do this without changing my screen setup. So let's just look for web design. So this ad right here is a search ad. It's using my keyword that I placed into search to sell to these companies, this USA web designer. They're bidding against that keyword to show up in this top spot. So it's Squarespace and the Web Coders Agency and websites Arctic, whatever it is, and then Wikipedia is the first organic search result. So all of those are sponsored ads. They're bidding against this keyword that I popped into Google, and so those are called search ads. The other kind of ad that we see a lot are display ads, and it's sometimes hard to find, but depending on what news source you read, sometimes those can be display ads from Google. They get put into social media. Sometimes they'll pay for that. And then one really interesting place that they show up is in email. And if you have a Gmail account, sometimes you'll see an ad in Gmail, and that's a display ad as well. So those have typically a photo and a headline and stuff. Just gonna pull up an example. Photo. So, yeah, here's one of the Capital Gazette. This would be a display ad that potentially came from Google. There's a lot of different places you can purchase display ads. The next kind of ad that's really cool is a Google shopping ad. So Google integrated a shopping widget into Google itself. So instead of having to go to Amazon and then search for something, Google just immediately puts the shopping right in there. So if I search for, let's just say grapefruit candle, the first thing that shows up are these this shopping link, and these are all sponsored posts. So all these people are paying to have their product show up when I search for grapefruit candles. This one's really powerful. If Troy were here, I'd be excited about sharing this if they haven't already done this. And I think I mentioned on the Shopify and website webinar last time that this is something that you can have Shopify directly integrate into and push your products into, and then choose if you want to sponsor them. So it's kind of two parts. There's the sponsored side, and then these are all just Google seeing shops and saying, hey, there's a product that matches your search. Let me pull it into the shopping, and you can just click and potentially order it right here in Google and never leave the page. A couple of the other ads we won't look at, but there's app ads, so ads that get placed within different applications. There's video ads, which get placed on top of like YouTube videos, stuff like that. There are discovery ads, which is a whole other platform that kind of just surprises users and lets them find new stuff online. And then there's local search ads. This one's really cool, and I do want to show this one. So this is only for different specific service business, so it's not super relevant here. But let's say you are looking for a roofer in Lafayette. If I search for roofer Lafayette, the first thing that comes up are these Google guaranteed. These are Google local ads. So it pulls in a phone number and a name for local roofers that are paying for this ad type, and it doesn't charge per click or per impression. It only charges you when I call. And it records all those calls, and so they can listen, and if I call them and they're only advertising for roofing, and I call them asking about gutters, and they say, we don't do gutters, sorry, go find somebody else, they can get refunded for that call. So it's really great to only pay for leads. There's not a lot of great ad sources that let you do that, but it's limited to services that would be prioritized, would prioritize the local businesses. So a lot of home services are in here. We run these on for a law firm in town, which is great for them. But yeah, that's another type of Google ads. The last two are similar. It's called Performance Max, which is basically allows people to the last two are Performance Max, which allows users to use a mix of all of those other types of advertising, and it kind of lets Google decide which is going to make the most bang for your buck. And then Smart Ads, which is even a more dumbed down version of that. where you give a ton of control to Google to place the ads on your behalf. Those can be powerful tools, but again, Google's out for making money for themselves, not necessarily for us. Ideally, it's both, but not always. And so those two options can make it feel like we don't have to do any work. We just tell Google what we want to advertise against, and they just do it for us. But in reality, a lot of times you won't see as good of results, actual results, because Google has a couple of ways of tacking on fees or using broad keywords instead of specific ones and not thinking about the actual intent, and then you end up spending money on people seeing your ads that you don't need to see your ads. So we're going to talk mostly about search ads and keywords, and then performance max ads as well from here. All right, so search ads. This is a core ad type for Google. It's really their original advertising platform, and it's built on their primary tool as well, Google Search, right? So it's fairly straightforward. When somebody types into Google, Google allows businesses to bid for those top placements against those search terms or keywords as they're called. So like web design, we talked about already, that's a keyword. I can bid against that, against all those other companies that are advertising for the same thing, and that will get shown when somebody types in my keywords and the bid strategy matches, right? So let me look at my notes here. So yeah, it's a bid strategy. It's called cost per click. We've kind of already talked about that a little bit. But for each keyword that you can see a cost per click, and I'll show you how to find some of that information really quick. Basically, to do this effectively, we've got to put ourselves in the shoes of our consumers and think about, if I were them, what would I be looking for in Google to find me? And that takes some time and some effort. Typically, it's referred to as keyword research, but you want to find the right mix of keywords that will be relevant for your target audience. There's a lot of different variants of keywords, so like web design is one version of that, but a variant could be, how do I design a website? Or it could be website development company near me, or something like that. Those are all variants of the same kind of keyword, and I might want to advertise for all of those, right, and try and bid against those ads. Some keywords are more valuable than others, and again, we'll touch on how you can figure that out, and then what that means. So let me see here. Yeah, we've already talked a little bit about keyword research. I'm going to pull up another window and show you guys what that looks like. So there's a ton of different tools that you can do for keyword research. My favorite just happens to be this tool called SpyFu. So if I'm doing website development or website design, getting kicked out by a teammate, so let me pull up another tool. Getting kicked out on every platform, that's good. Okay. So, if I want to do web design and research keywords around web design, it's going to show me all kinds of different keyword options. Web design company, web design agency, web designer, website designers, website design services, and it shows me a lot of different information, which is really helpful. One is the intent. This is so critical. The intent between web design, people looking for this keyword might be just trying to answer a specific question or whatever, it's informational, versus something like web design company is commercial. They're looking into, they're trying to investigate brands or services. Versus if I go down to website designers, the intent here is, I wanted to do web designer near me, right? That's a transactional keyword. Somebody's looking to hire somebody, right? So understanding the intent behind some of these keywords is critical, and it also determines their value. So if I look over here, I can see how many users are searching for this. These are national numbers, but you know, there's 49,000 web searches a month for web design as a term. It's also really hard to rank for in organic search, and then the cost per click is $8. So it would take $8 for me to bid for web design and get a user to click on it, if that makes sense. So again, you can see the different costs for these, and something that's high intent, very transactional, is going to have a higher cost than something that's informational. And something that has high traffic is going to be higher cost than something that has low traffic. It also depends on the amount of people that are bidding, right? If there's 1,000 web developers in Indiana, which trust me, there just about are, and we're all bidding for the same keywords, it's just going to keep knocking that price up and up and up because we're trying to compete with each other, right? So this is really critical for running Google search and really any of the other ads on Google's platform, understanding what these keywords are and how to use them and what to go after. We already talked about broad matching keywords, so again, this just kind of is a general term that means, you know, I just typed in web design and it's throwing in all kinds of variants on this. Let's see, like freelance web designer. Well, I'm not a freelance web designer. I'm in a marketing agency, so this is really an irrelevant term for me. I probably don't actually want to spend $3 a click on this term. So sometimes the broad match is a bad, and this is something that you can set within Google Ads as well if you want to target broad match versus phrase match, which would say you can swap the words around in a phrase. So instead of just searching for, let's be more specific here. If I search web design in Lafayette, and I'm broad matched, web designers in Lafayette, Alabama, or Louisiana, I mean, not helpful. Let's just change this to Indiana, actually. So again, at a broad match, there's all kinds of specific and variant ones. If I go to a phrase match, it basically just allows it to narrow that down a little bit. If I go to exact match, it's only going to show that specific phrase plus any additional words. So again, this is the exact order and everything. It just added Pennsylvania at the end. Yes, this is really important, like I said, and when you set up your Google AdWords campaign, making sure to select not broad match because it'll lump in all kinds of irrelevant keywords and you'll be paying for clicks that you never wanted to get. So trying to target phrase match or exact match is a better fit, but that just means you have to select more keywords. So you have to do the research and figure out how many of these are relevant, select them, and add them to your campaign. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another thing that I want to touch on with AdWords campaigns is competitor campaigns. This isn't super relevant to the farmers market because we're all friendly competitors, but in the instance of the lawn care company that I was talking about, there's a huge national chain in town that provides services, and they get a ton of traffic. So I'm just I can't drop names, right? So TruGreen in town is one of their competitors, and TruGreen as a brand gets 90,000 searches a month, which is crazy. And you know, as a local competitor, I know I can do better than they can, and that my clients are happier with me than they are with them because I get all of them, right? And so I can actually bid against TruGreen as a term and narrow it down to the Lafayette market and compete with them in search, so that when somebody goes and Googles TruGreen, let's do it right now and see. There's definitely people already bidding for that. Ugh. There we go. TruGreen. Let's see what comes up. So the first thing is they are, right? So that's a common strategy for them to.
Which doesn't always end that way, does it?
It doesn't.
Like when I put in a certain phrase or two words, it doesn't always bring what you would expect at the top.
Yep.
Why is that?
This is why. It's because some
Okay.
people either are,
Targeting that?
they're either targeting it intentionally or they're mismanaging their ads, and you're
Okay.
getting served an ad that
Right.
isn't relevant for what you wanted,
Right.
which is not ideal.
Well, like I've typed like Stoke Seeds before,
Yep.
and I'll get like 3 seed companies before Stokes,
Yep.
when you would have thought I would have got that exact one.
Yep. It's because Stokes isn't spending enough basically to outspend all their
To get on
competition.
top, okay.
Yeah, when I do a search for Shopify, it's actually not doing it right now. It depends on your user behavior too. You know, I've searched for Shopify enough, maybe
That
Google
it-
knows that
yeah.
I'm not gonna click on an ad for it. Let's try Squarespace. Oops, sometimes I'm typing issues, but anyways, it's not showing up for me right now, but you get the idea. It will, trying to do a competitor campaign
Right.
can be really valuable, and there's people that intentionally do that, and then there's people that unintentionally do that and don't realize that they are. But it can be a great way to get exposure, especially for the local business that is, you know, 100 times smaller than
Right.
the national provider that's just dominating.
Yeah.
It can be expensive, but again, a good way to get your name out there. Any questions about search ads while we're on the topic? I didn't demo how to actually set up a search account. There's a ton of good videos on YouTube that can kind of walk us through
Okay.
that, but I kind of want to hit on some of these
Sure.
high level ideas. We are almost out of time, so I won't get into Performance Max very much, but it's like I talked about, whoops, sorry, I'm not sure this week. So Performance Max ads are basically a combination of all the different advertising, the ways that you can advertise in Google. So it will create YouTube ads, ads for Gmail, search ads, display ads, and then discover ads right in the same campaign, which is really nice for being able to track the results from any of your advertising strategies, and it allows you to input specific things like where do you want people to go after they click on your ad, right? Not your homepage, but to the landing page or to the product page or whatever. You can add different images, you can add your logo, you can add a handful of videos, and then a bunch of different headlines for the ad as well, including descriptions and some other things too. And basically what Google then does is it continually takes all the content and kind of mash it together to provide an ad. It'll test it, see which one is performing the best on these different platforms, and then prioritize that combination of the assets that you provided it. So it's a great way to kind of like jumpstart your testing across multiple different platforms and see what works. You know, some businesses might be surprised to see that some of their ads are performing really well on YouTube versus they thought they were all going to get search ads, right? Or display versus Gmail. So it's a great way to test a lot of different variables without having to set up a ton of different campaigns and do all of that work. It comes with some cons. Again, you're giving some control back to Google, and their number one priority is Google making money, and then their secondary priority is maybe you can make money if you try hard enough. So that's the only con with Performance Max, is it takes some of the control out of your hands and automates it. And again, the default is going to be Google at least needs to make their money first, which can be a con. But that's really true of all the different advertising providers, is if they're not going to make money, you're definitely not going to make money. And if they weren't making money, you'd be out of business. So that's their number one goal. Any questions about Performance Max? I didn't go into a lot of detail, but yeah, any questions about any of this?
So do you pay more when they do this then?
Nope, it's just an update to their platform. Sorry, let me take that back and give a more nuanced answer. You don't pay more explicitly, but some of the settings that they'll just like leave on and stuff like that because they're automating it will just like end up you spending more on ad spend than maybe you should have or would have. Like we got into the whole broad match thing. Like by default, if you set up an ads campaign, broad match keywords is going to be what's selected, which means you're going to spend more money and most likely won't see a return. It's not exactly predatory, but I feel like they do this stuff because they know, like, if you're going to spend $100 on ads and they give you an option to spend $105 on ads and you don't know any better, even if that $5 isn't going to be more effective, they're not going to tell you that, but they'll let you spend $105, right? So it's all kind of set up that way. So you kind of have to go through and find those defaults and change them to make sure that you're not spending money that you don't need to spend and isn't going to actually increase the effectiveness of your campaign. But it's not like, it's not actually more money. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
It's not like they charge $10 an ad for these and $5 an ad for the other. It's
Right.
all the same. They just give you some more bells and whistles on this one and tell you that it's value, and at the end of the day, it may not be.
So where is the best places to be? Is it a search? Is it like on YouTube? Does it just depend on the business? And
I think, yeah, it does depend on the business a little bit. I think that search is one of the best places because it's one of the easier ones to manage. When you get into some of these display ads, there's so many variables, right? All of a sudden there's images on top of that, and with this Performance Max, that's one of the reasons that it's powerful is because
they're going to allow you to do more of that.
Right, yeah. You give Google all these variables and then it takes care of the
Right.
complexity of testing them and trying to figure out the best combination. But doing that on your own can be hard. So if I were to start or tell somebody who is just getting started where to start, it'd be with AdWords because the technology is critical to all the other kinds of advertising you might do online. And then and you're limiting the amount of variables that you have to control. So as long as you can just focus and kind of build a platform there, like a foundation there, then you can kind of like move up and do the more complicated stuff like these Performance Max ads. Start simple and with something that you can bite off and not more than you can chew, right? That's the idea. But it does totally depend on your business too, because those Google local ads are incredible if it's relevant for your business. Like I can't run ads for web design or advertising services on that platform because it's only for like businesses that would.
But for us, that probably would be the way to go, right?
Let me see. I don't know if they have food vendors or like anything like that as a part of it either for some reason, and maybe they will eventually. Let me see. Google ad types or categories. Okay, so. Here are the verticals. There is education, so beauty, dance, driving, first aid, massage, like blah, blah, blah. Childcare, pet care, wellness, which does not include food, healthcare. So there's the pet food. Is it dog food? Is there a vendor that sells dog food?
Yeah.
They could advertise, never mind, not food. I take it back. Should have looked before I started speaking. Home services is the biggest one, and then professional services is a big one too, but it does not look like any of those are really relevant in the instance of the farmer's market, which is too bad. Google Shopping might be, if you guys ever set up a website that was connected to Google Shopping, that could be a really valuable one when somebody searches for like CSA basket or something.
Right.
But I think in that case, AdWords would also be
Yeah, it'd be
the
good.
best bet if that was something you guys were interested in doing, just as an example. All right, we are just past time, and I'm out of slides, so